my first job as a franchisor, getting the opportunity to work with about 180 locations around the United States, my director, Jim, took a position with one of the franchisees. He actually became the vice president of operations for the biggest franchise company, which was called Concoa, the company that had 100 locations in Florida. So I was clearly in line from Jim's perspective, my boss, and actually his boss's perspective as well, and my perspective, to step up and become the director of franchise operations and development. So we were called, Doug, the COO, called us to his office about 1 p.m. one day. And I had a full expectation that I was going to his office to hear that I had been promoted. So Jim and I entered the office. Doug sat down and he said very clearly and very early in the conversation, he said, "Bob, I'm not going to promote you today. You've done a good job. Jim is here standing up for you. He believes that you're ready for the promotion, but I'm not going to promote you today for two reasons. Number one, I've only been here. Doug was only there for about a month as COO, and I don't know you as well as I'd like to. And number two, there are two other candidates that should be considered for this opportunity." And I tried to be as professional as possible, and hopefully I was, but I pushed back and said, I supported my position. I've been working with these folks. I have the rapport. The results are good. Jim stands up for me as I understand it, and probably whined for a few minutes. And Doug stuck to his guns, as is appropriate for a leader, because leadership is lonely. And he said, "Hey, I'll make this decision in the next 2 weeks." So later that day, went home, shared that information with Marilyn, my wife, was very, very frustrated, likely thought that I probably wasn't going to get the job. What is this curveball that's been thrown at me? Why wasn't I promoted today? So all those things do creep into the back of your mind, perhaps even the front of your mind. And the phone rang at 9 p.m., which was unusual. We're not talking cell phones here. We're talking about picking the phone up off the wall. And it was Doug, the COO. And he said, "Bob, I understand, and I guess that you're frustrated, and I wanted to call you tonight and let you know that I understand that frustration and that I support you and that you're doing a good job. And I appreciate that. But I do need this time to make a decision. I expect to promote you, but I'm not ready today to do that. I have other work to do." And we exchanged niceties and he hung up. Boy, did I appreciate that. That's what leadership is oftentimes about. It's providing clear expectations, providing clarity where you can. So wrapping up this mini area, make sure you set clear expectations. As appropriate, create a scope document, or in the IT world, make sure there's requirements definition in place. Make sure, especially if it's an IT project, that they have the time and the ability to complete the project. The word deadlines, very, very important. Gain understanding. Ask questions. The people in the meeting or the people that are being assigned the task, give them the opportunity to ask questions. And as a leader, make sure that they are crystal clear on the expectations. Create a reasonable timeline. As appropriate, put a little bit of sand in there, because we need to under-promise and over-deliver. If something's promised on Friday the 13th, we should do our best to deliver that on Thursday the 12th. Because if we promised it at 11 o'clock on Friday the 13th and we delivered it at 5 p.m., we failed. Did we really? No. Are they going to look at it at 5 o'clock? Probably not. But when in their mind, we didn't hit the deadline. So I'm very, very big on deadlines. So clarify. And as appropriate, summarize your meeting. If you just had an hour meeting, and oftentimes meetings are hours and a lot was discussed, go back to your office and send an email that says, "Thank you for a productive and enjoyable meeting. Let's be clear that we decided on the following." And then as appropriate, use the term SMART, not necessarily in the memo, but make sure it's specific, measurable, achievable, once again, and that the timeline is set and that everybody on the team understands the timeline. Last part of this section on expectation leadership. As I said, don't allow scope creep. And in terms of how you lead, let's spend a minute or two on that. MBWA was really big in the 90s and the early 2000s. I think it's still important now. MBWA MBWA stood for Management by Wandering Around. But the key to MBWA is asking the right questions of the right people. So when you're talking to a David Dorwart, who's running 9 companies today, who was and is obviously very, very talented and very driven and one of the best expectation leaders I've ever met, you can ask David, how are things going? Do you need any help on a project? And if David says, I'm good, you can lead that. On the other hand, some of your other folks are going to need more questions, more guidance. And oh, by the way, if you own the project, you are ultimately responsible. If they don't deliver, it's on you. So it is your responsibility to look into and ask at the appropriate checkpoints, how are you doing? And checklisting the various things that you need to be done. So in that case, and even in the case with David, one of the questions is, can I help? Can I remove any obstacles for you? Things are going to go wrong in your franchise. You're going to deliver the wrong sandwich. You're going to spill something if you're in the restaurant business. If you're in the printing business, there'll be a mistake in terms of the number of copies or perhaps the way the copies came out, and perhaps you miss a deadline. The key there is to look at the solution and immediately provide it to the customer, asking the question, how can I help you? And just take care of it, and not to play the blame game, or even worse than that, the excuse game. Just don't care as a customer at that point. I just want you to take care of it. So take care of the problem immediately. Don't play the blame game. And then go back as appropriate and address either the system or the people problem. And if it's a system problem, you make adjustments. If it's a people problem, when appropriate, you counsel that person and you train as necessary and you help him or her do their job more effectively.